a great pleasure and privilege to welcome you all back to the second workshop of the workshop series we conduct under the 10th International Conference on Education 2024. So the workshop title for this workshop will be Conducting Systematic Literature Review from Inception to Publication, and this will also proudly present by the 10th International Conference on Education 2024. We know that most of you are very keen on knowing more about research and specifically publication, where you bring the impact of your work to the world. So the main objective of this workshop is to guide you to develop a good literature review in your future researches as well as the research you are currently engaging. And this will be the initiative for many more knowledge sharing opportunities as well. The workshop speaker for today will be Professor Jonathan Rick. Before moving forward, I would like to share the agenda of this workshop. First, the workshop will be led by Professor Jonathan Rick, and then there will be a Q&A session, and finally, a brief overview about the educational conferences organized by the TIIKM. To introduce Professor Jonathan Rick, he is a professor of participation and learning support at the Open University of United Kingdom and England Nova University of Applied Sciences. His award-winning research has included groundbreaking participatory projects involving disabled people, multinational studies of special education, exploration of effective pedagogy in mainstream schools, and parental experiences of services. He has had more than 40 papers published in peer-reviewed journals since 2004, many of them based upon systematic literature reviews. His latest book, In Search of Education, Participation and Inclusion, Embrace the Uncertainty, was published by Routledge in 2024. So today, the Professor Jonathan Rick will conduct the workshop on publication under the title of Conducting Systematic Literature Review from Inception to Publication. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to invite Professor Jonathan Rick to conduct this workshop. Professor, it's over to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will share my screen. It's a pleasure to be here today. And let's get this up and running. Hang on a second. Okay. Can you see that PowerPoint? Could I have a yes if you can see that PowerPoint from someone? Or put it in the chat. I haven't got any messages from anyone, so can we see that?
Yes, Professor, we can see you and we can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's get rid of that webinar chat from the middle of the screen, shall we? And why is it not working? Excuse me a moment. For some reason, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to talk today about systematic literature reviews, and I'm going to talk in particular, I'm going to draw on, I think, 5 or 6 systematic literature reviews that I've undertaken. I think probably I've been involved in close on a dozen systematic literature reviews. I don't think they are necessarily the best form of literature reviews, and at the end I will give you some critiques of them, but they do have some benefits, and it's useful to think about those. So I'll start with that. Why should we do a systematic literature review? What's the benefit of it? And they do take a number of different forms. You can have a systematic literature review which is systematic in absolutely every single stage. And you can have systematic reviews that are systematic, for instance, in their search, or systematic in their analysis, so that they use ideas from the systematic review process. So a lot of people will say they're doing a systematic review and they're not doing the full process. But why a systematic review? Well, firstly, the good thing about a systematic review is that you can have there's a very good chance of having a precise question, of dealing with a precise question. So here are 3 examples of questions that I've used in research. To what extent does the literature offer insights into whether, and if so, how intelligence-based classification shapes lives and identities of individuals, families, and communities? So you can see that within that, there are some very clear things. We're going to look at the literature. We're going to explore how the literature deals with intelligence-based classification. So that's the focus of the study. And it's about identities. So it's about identities and intelligence-based classification. So you've got these 2 variables. So it makes it quite easy to say, right, this is what we're focusing in on. It can be a precise question and a precise search. What lessons could be learned from other participatory projects to inform the development of practice in future participatory research projects? In many ways, that question, the second part of that question, is irrelevant. To inform the development of practice in future participatory research projects isn't what you're going to be looking for. What you're going to be looking for is the lessons learned from participatory projects. So therefore, you're searching for participatory projects and you're trying to explore what lessons the participatory projects felt were relevant to them. Again, you've got these limited variables that you're working on. How have the continuum of provision and the continuum of services in relation to special educational needs been conceptualized in the literature? So again, you will be looking for things which are based on the notion of a continuum. You'll be wanting them to be linked to special educational needs, and then you'll be exploring those, drawing out information from those papers that are around continuum and special educational needs, and seeing the concepts and ideas that are within those papers. But the other thing you can do with a systematic review is that you can do something that lasts for a longer period of time. Sorry, my screen is frozen again. If it's to do with this, it should be disappearing and it's not. There we go. I don't know what's happening. So another example of a precise question is you can do something that is one question, and then you can burrow down into it over a period of time. So this was a study I did. This was one of the first systematic literature reviews I did. And this was in 2006, I think I did. No, 2005, 2006. I was first involved in this. So the question for the study was, what pedagogical approaches can effectively include children with special educational needs in mainstream classes? So again, you've got a focus. You've got pedagogic approaches. You've got children with special educational needs in mainstream classes. And you're trying to look at the effect of those pedagogical approaches. But in each year, we were able to ask some deeper questions that were still drawing on the same literature that had been identified for that first question. So in the first year, we were looking on peer intergroup interactive approaches. So we were focusing on a particular type of pedagogical approach. In the second year, we were looking at interactions and how interactions were talked about in those papers. And in the third year, we were looking at whole class subject-based pedagogies and how those were conceptualized. And this was because when we downloaded all the papers and we looked at pedagogical approaches, actually it was more efficient to break down the different types of pedagogical approaches. So the systematic review allowed us to do this. It helps you to answer a specific question in a specific way. And what it also enables you to do, come on, is to come up with findings which are quite specific. So this is an example. This is from the intelligence-based study that I talked about. But you can say from 3,624 possible papers published since 1944, only 86 from 19 countries focus upon schooling, intelligence-based selection, and the lives and identities of individuals, families, and communities. So you can make quite specific statements about the whole nature of the field in which you're doing your research. Whereas if you're doing a narrative literature review, it's much harder. You can't claim to have covered the whole field in quite the same way. We're able to say specifically what is the type of research that has taken place. In this case, you've got these three around exams and gifted and talented and tracking and so forth. We're able to say that no study looks at all three areas, so that therefore you spotted a gap in the literature. We're able to say that to recognize problems of the ways in which we have conceptualized intelligence-based selection in research, in literature. You can see gaps and problems in that. And you can also make statements like this last one, which is saying, look, the whole of the literature is dominated by quantitative studies. And it focuses on outcomes in relation to people's hopes and their opportunities. So what's missing, again, we can say quite clearly, there's a gap in the literature. There's a lack of qualitative studies. There's a lack of narrative studies about people's lived experience of educational selection. And there's a lack of a reflection on those different areas of exams and being setted and tracked and being identified as gifted and talented. So through the systematic review, we're able to demonstrate there is this clear gap in the literature. There's this clear gap in the research, and this is something where we need to do more research. So it allows you to answer and be quite specific in what you're trying to focus on. It also allows you to produce things like this particular model here. And this is a precise claim, but it's a visual representation. So it allows you to conceptualize things. It allows you to draw on ideas and to be quite precise about them. So this is one that came from the participatory research project, which involved looking at, I think it was 54 or 58 participatory research projects, excuse me. And we were able to say that underpinning these projects were ideas of in any moment of participation were ideas of support and power and voice. And we were able to say what the outcomes were for those projects as they spoke about them. And we were able to say, well, what are the things that mattered? And as you can see, that's the internal circle, the second circle: time, enjoyment, roles, flexibility, beliefs, adaptation, space, languages, listening, relationships. These things were all important. But you can then put into your next paper, this. So this is an ability to say, well, we're not just randomly selecting these particular lists around the edge of time, enjoyment, roles, flexibility, beliefs, and the same with support and power and voice. But the tensions, we can specifically say, look, they came from these papers, these ideas. So in paper number 1, which is in Aldridge, paper number 2, which is Bigby and Frowley, in paper number 3, which is another Bigby et al., and so forth, they speak about power. They speak about voice in this paper. So you're able to be very clear, and someone can go back and check They can see whether you've got it right, whether you've interpreted it right, but it also allows them to go and explore. So you've taken something, a model such as this, and you're demonstrating quite clearly where the ideas have come from. So what is the process? How do we go about doing this? Well, again, there are various ways of doing it, but one of the first things you do is you start by saying, what are the databases? What am I going to search? So this is an example from one, I think this was to do with the continuum. And here we've got the databases that we searched, the dates that we searched them. As you can see, you're very detailed about them. You're very detailed about where you searched. And then you can say the number of records, the number of things that we downloaded. Now, some of these papers may be duplicates. Some of these papers maybe not turn out to be relevant, but you still put it all down. So as you can see, we downloaded 2,918 papers. 464 of those were the same. So they came up more than once in the different databases, which is good. That suggests that you're looking in good places. And then we had an interesting one, which is that we were looking for the word continuum, and there's a publication house called Continuum Publishing Group. And so we had to get rid of all of them. There were 75 of those. But we ended up, we can say we had 2,379 papers that we were going to explore. Now, of course, these databases, one of the things to recognize about a systematic literature review is it still involves you making subjective choices. All the way through, you're making choices, decisions, and you have conversations with colleagues. You try and do it in as rigorous a way as possible. But the key bit is that you're open about what you've done. People can see what you've done. And if you show people what you've done, that solves many of the doubts and uncertainties that people might have. So these databases, a lot of them have gone or have been merged with other ones, or they might not. There are lots of, I think it's PsycInfo. There are lots of different types of PsycInfo. Now, there are a number of different databases that fall under that category, as I recall. So these things change, these databases change. You might not be able to do exactly the same search anymore, but you might also make decisions. So here is an example of a decision. This was a study that we did, but we only chose to use one search engine. Now you could say, but that's not rigorous. What about, you might have missed some other papers. Well, we decided that Scopus was enough. It had looked at 36,000 peer-reviewed journals. Sorry, 34,000 peer-reviewed journals. It looked at books and journals and trade journals, and it allowed us to search in different languages. And when we went and had a look, we identified immediately 600 papers. And we compared that to another study that had similar search terms, that had used 3 different databases, and they had identified less. They'd identified 110 versus our 600. So we felt quite clear. We also recognized that we recognized the papers as being relevant. So as you can see, what we've done is we've said, look, in this study, we didn't search lots of databases. We searched one, but we're very clear about why we've searched that one. We've given a reason, peer-reviewed journal article. They've taken this, they've looked at this, and they've recognized that this is acceptable. Otherwise, we wouldn't have got it published. So again, it's about being open about what you've done, about your processes. We've even said at the bottom here, we've been honest. The time frame of Arches, that was the project that we were working on, was limited, and spending additional time on searches unlikely to produce additional studies seemed inefficient. So we've been absolutely clear at the bottom there, just saying, look, we were doing this under time pressure. So then what you need to do is you need to say, well, what are my search terms? And here I've just got a couple of pages showing search terms. You don't need to read them in that detail, but you can see that we were looking for, on the continuum study, we had 60 odd search terms. So we were looking for anything that might be associated with special educational needs. We had 60 categories, and that includes inclusive education, learning difficulties, slow learners. It included terms, old-fashioned terms, mental retardation, and so forth. And we had more general terms like inclusion. We had impairment, so forth. And we looked for those as well as the word continuum. So anything to do with continuum that also came up with any of these terms, that's what we would find. And we were looking for them across a series of databases. Or you can be more more specific in the way you make your claims. So this is that study that I talked about where we were looking at pedagogy. Actually, I said 2006, it was 2004. And here we specifically put the search strategy for each of the different databases. So this is the database dissertation abstracts. And we can say the keyword we were looking for would be either mainstream or inclusive education or inclusive school. Another keyword would be curriculum or teaching practice or teaching method. We would want it to come after 1994 and before 2003, and we would want it to not be a policy, a law, or regulation. So you can see how, again, you're being able to be very clear about the terms that you used to search. And of course, this is why it's very important. It's very important to have a question that you can search, you can create search terms for. So you only want a couple of variables. If we had to come up with other words for continuum, other words for special educational needs, and then we put in another two, which is and social care, and we're looking for the word community, and we put all of that in, you would end up having so many. You'd have such a big question. You'd have such a big amount of papers. You wouldn't be able to answer anything meaningful. So again, but having a precise question allows you to have precise search terms and to then be explicit about those search terms. One thing also that's relevant is that some databases are better for some searches. So you need to be using the correct database for the subject area you're searching in. I mentioned earlier that PsycInfo has different, I think it's, as I say, I think it's PsycInfo. They have different search engines. Some would be relevant to education, some would not. Yeah, or some would be relevant to different areas. So then what do? You've identified 2,379 papers. That is a lot of papers. Now, I don't know about you, but for me to read 2,379 papers would probably take me 1,138 days, maybe 40 days. So it's going to take me a good 3 or 4 years to read all those papers in detail. So you can't do that. You can't even do that if you have a team of people. What you do instead is you get the titles and the abstracts and you download them all. Or you have, in this one here on the left here, you can see we've got the title and we've got a link. So you click that and it's a hyperlink and it takes you to the abstract. But you've got the there you've got the full reference. Or you download, as this one on the right is showing, you download the whole abstract into a table with the title. Personally, this one is even quicker. This one relies on you having the internet working. But you know, if you've got 2,300 papers, then actually this makes for a much more manageable Word document or Excel spreadsheet. This as an Excel spreadsheet is quite cumbersome. Now you can do all of this using software. And there are organizations like like EPI, for example, is one of the groups I've worked with, and they have online websites which is dedicated to being enabling you to use a version like this, which is much more efficient. Everything's kept within the database. This method over here is an offline system, sorry, where you keep things for yourself on your laptop or on your hard drive or in the cloud somewhere, but it's kept by the team rather than centrally. Both systems work. Now you'll also notice, what are these columns for? Here, for example, is the abstract, then there's a column, then there's a column. Here is the title and the hyperlink, and here is a column. Well, these numbers 1, 1, and 1 will be exclusion criteria. So you have these inclusion, exclusion criteria. And if you were to look more detail at this boxes here, you would have inclusion or exclusion criteria, and you might have a comment here. This is a comment box, which allows someone to make reference to something. So what you've done is you've read the title and you've thought about the main question, and you've thought about your search terms and what it is you're looking for. And then you've decided, does this answer that question? And to help you do that, you have what are called inclusion exclusion criteria. So here's an example of inclusion criteria from the participatory project, the one where I showed you the while of participation, that three-dimensional image. We were searching for papers that had a focus on intellectual sensory impairment, that must have qualitative or quantitative data collection, that had to report on inclusive, participatory, or emancipatory research. It had to be published after 1996, and it needed to be in English, Spanish, or German. So that meant that was the inclusion criteria. If it didn't focus on intellectual or sensory impairment, if it wasn't a qualitative or quantitative data collection, and sometimes that was the case, it could, for example, be reporting on policy or something. If it didn't involve one of those three ideas of research, if it wasn't published after 1996, so if it was published in 1994, and if it was in Welsh, then we wouldn't download that paper. We would exclude it. So you can see, again, you're making subjective decisions. And for instance, that last one, why 1996? Why did we choose that? Why did we not have Welsh? You've got to be able to explain these things. And the reason we had English, Spanish, and German is we had English, Spanish, and German speakers on the team. We didn't have a Welsh speaker on the team. But again, you have to be able to justify why you're doing each of these and be honest about them. And so then you can present this as this inclusion exclusion criteria. So we did include it if it does involve education. We didn't include it if it does not involve education. We did include it if it was to do with special educational needs. We excluded it if it wasn't to do with special educational needs. I want you to go back now. Can you see these numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you can see what these are. So the 1 here, that means that you would exclude it. It was excluded for this reason. Now, of course, if you include something, it meets all 8 of the criteria. If you exclude it, what you do is you exclude it on basis of the first one you exclude it on. So if it doesn't involve education, you just press 1. You don't worry about any of the others because it's excluded. But if it does involve education, you move to the next one. So does it include special educational needs? If it's no, well, then you'd exclude it under 2. You wouldn't worry about the other things, and so on. So you can include something all the way through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All of those things are included, but it turns out it's in German. For this study, you'd exclude it. So you can be quite precise about why you've included or excluded things. And here's another way of seeing this. What I'm trying to show you here is how you're making sure that your inclusion criteria match to your questions. So you can see how the sub-questions are possible to be included in here. We haven't had to search for things around interactions or peer group interactive or whole class subject-based pedagogies. All we've done is we've searched for pedagogical approaches conducted in mainstream classrooms. So actually, if something came up that would have been labeled with one of these terms and hadn't been, there wasn't the word pedagogy somewhere in the keywords or in the title, then we might have missed it. So again, you've made choices, but by showing people your inclusion exclusion criteria in the paper, by showing people your in-depth questions, the reviewers and the readers can see exactly what's gone on. They can see where there are gaps. They can see where you've made your subjective choices. So here is an example of one of those the spreadsheets up close. This is a paper. As you can see, we read the abstract, and you can see this one is an investment in road infrastructure. So it looks at the lives of marginalized people from economics, such as people with disabilities. It looks at participatory groups, which had focus group discussions, interviews with road decision makers, walkabouts, photo elicitation. But as you can see that in this title, there is no mention of special SI would stand for impairment, sensory impairment, and LD is learning disabilities. But what you can see here is that we've got change to exclude. So initially it was included. But one of the things that you do in a systematic review is you moderate. So you have more than one person undertaking the review. Now, there are a wide variety of ways of doing this. So I can't specifically remember the way that we did it in this one. But for example, one of the things you can do is you can have 2 people review every single title and every single abstract. And there you compare and contrast what people have said. And then you have a meeting. And if one person said include and one person said exclude, you talk about each of the papers where you've disagreed, and then you come to an agreement. I think that's what happened in this particular study. Another way of doing it is that you choose a sample. You choose maybe 100 papers, and the team of people each do the 100 papers, and you do maybe a Kappa's Cohen on it. So in the one below here, which was a study about early years teacher training. Let's lift that up. You can see in this study, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people looking at a whole series of papers. You can see that the exclusion was generally, that first paper we all excluded under E2, 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 E1, E22, E1, E1. So we excluded it, but for slightly different reasons. Doesn't matter. We all excluded it. But this one, the person included it. So now we have to look at these papers. Do we look at these papers? Or do we have a discussion about why this person excluded it? So you can do your moderation in terms of coming to clarify your understandings of things. And then you can demonstrate this. You can demonstrate what your criteria are. And here you can see what we've excluded and included. We had 2,372, 1,000. Most of them are excluded under the first one. Well, that's not surprising. It's the first one you came to. And you can also then do the same thing. You can then represent it. And this, what I'm showing you here, is a flow diagram. Here you can see the title and abstract was screened for 624. We excluded 567 under these criteria. We potentially had 57 to include. We then had a moderation process. And at the moderation process, another 3 papers came out. We had 54 papers. So you can see, be quite precise about why we've included and excluded these papers in this process. What you can also do is you can say, well, look, having identified all of these papers, and we've now got it down to, for instance, this one here on the continuum, we identified about 400 papers. But we recognize that a lot of those papers weren't relevant. What they were doing was that they were drawing on policy definitions, and we hadn't got that in our first original search terms. We recognized that had been a mistake, so we had a second inclusion criteria. We clarified what we meant by the difference between policy and theory, and we then went back through the papers, the ones that we'd included, and we just looked for the ones that were focusing on theory. So we reduced it down to 63 papers in the study. And then that is something that you can represent here. I think, is this one? Yes, it's this one. So you can see we had 637 screened. No, this is a different study. No, this is a different study. Sorry. But again, you can see that you can, in this one, we had different years in this one. So you can see what we accepted and included in each of the years. Because we went back to this original set of papers each year and then included or excluded them about whether they were relevant to this particular study. Yeah. So we came up with a different set of inclusion and exclusion criteria for each year. After this, so we had all of these inclusion, then in this year we had a different set, in this year we had a different set, in this year we had a different set, because we were focusing on a slightly different thing. So again, you're being very, very clear. A lot of people would say, I want to see a prisma flow diagram. This is a prisma flow diagram. Or they might say an epi flow diagram. This is an epi flow diagram. So then you go through each paper. So you've downloaded them and you've got here 134 papers to have a look in detail. In this one, you've got potentially 202. We got rid of a load more. I think it got down to about 80. You can do a number of ways. You can be as systematic as you like now about extracting your ideas from the papers. So you can have detailed keywording. This is from EPI. So you have to say the type of report, what language it is in, what countries were studied, and they have drop-down lists. So you've got an example, number 13 here, of a drop-down list. Which types of the study does this report describe? A description, exploration of relationships, an evaluation, research and manipulated, methodology, a review of another sort. And these are the descriptions that EPI provides. So you've got to understand them as a reviewer. You've got to interpret them. So again, there's that level of subjective understanding. And you've got to agree what you mean by a controlled trial as opposed to a randomized controlled trial. And you've got to be able to identify it and agree it. And then you might have specific keywording that is for, in this study, we had these different questions. So we had specific keywording for each of the each of those studies in the years. What it allows you to do by having specific questions, and you might have a lot, like this is a lot of specific questions, but a lot of these may not be relevant to your study. It really is it that important to us to have what we're trying to do? For instance, in the participation study, we're literally just looking for lessons learned from participation. So actually, we don't need to know a lot of this detail. It's not that relevant to us. But it does allow you to say things like who does the teaching. So you can see patterns and learn lessons. So you could write a whole paper on who does the teaching, potentially. It gives you a lot of outputs of things that you could talk about. It allows you to make statements like this about how many quantitative studies were there, how many qualitative studies, how many. Again, you can see how there was a subjective element in this. You have to try and make sure that you agree what are the differences between do I mark this as a qualitative study or as a qualitative quantitative study? Is it both? Is it a literature? Is it a literature review? Can you have a qualitative study that's a literature review? If you have a literature review of qualitative studies, you have to have these kind of discussions. And you can then produce for each paper. This one had less keywording. It had the paper, it had the date in the country, it had the demographic, in other words, who was it were involving, what nature of the intelligent-based assessment was being used, was it a school or an education, the nature of the school, what was the type of research, and a comment. So those were the things that we were looking for from each paper. The question is that there's a degree of interpretation going on here. You're making a value judgment. Same. Here's another. See, here is another paper that shows. Sorry, stop going away. This one shows how all the different types of continua that emerged from the continua document. And you can see we came up with all these categories from dozens and dozens of papers. There's an element in which you're making a subjective decision about whether it is a continuum of need or a continuum of severity of need. You have to agree that with people, and then you have to make a decision as you start to place things in these groups. And one of the ways that you do this is you then, having made your systematic data extraction. So you systematically said, it's this date, it's from this country, it's involved this sample, it's involved this research method. You then have to start extracting the ideas from the paper. Which are the ideas that are important for the question? And there are lots of different ways of doing this. In this particular one, you can see we've got the researcher has got the title of the paper, and then they've literally cut and pasted the section that they think answers the question. Responsible inclusion provides for a continuum of services. So here you go. You've now got a link between inclusion and a continuum of services. This one, again, you can see how each way through the person has extracted the data. And then that extracted data then becomes a thematically analyzed document in the same way you do thematic analysis in interviews. And you start to put them under these categories. So here there's a category of enjoyment, but you can say this paper, this statement links to this category. So you can, again, you can show exactly the stages that you've gone through, that the themes have developed and emerged. Now, there's one other thing that you need to think about here, which is an important term in systematic reviews, which is to try and give a little bit more rigor to these kind of thematic analysis and the subjective elements that we've been talking about. And this is called weight of evidence. And weight of evidence, you're able to say the weight of evidence means that overall we have high belief that this is evidence that we can trust, or medium belief, or medium high, or medium low. We can rank that whether we trust something about its the soundness, whether it's answering the question that it's trying to answer, whether it's appropriate to what we're looking at in the systematic review, whether it's appropriate to the way it's been undertaken, and so forth. And this allows you to then say, we treated these papers, we have high trust in these papers about the level of participation. This was the participation study. We have high confidence about the detail in the paper, in these papers. We have medium to high, medium to high. So again, somebody can look at these papers and go, oh, well, do I agree with that or disagree with that? Did they give more emphasis to these findings than to these findings? If something is said here, if something's said here and it's only said here, then this shouldn't be one of the main findings of the study if it's coming from a low paper. But it could be if only one of the high papers said it, it might be the one that it becomes a major finding. So again, weight of evidence is very important. And then you have to synthesize your findings. You have to bring things together, put them together. And that is based on that thematic idea. And it's building up ideas, but you're able to do that. You're able to say, look, these are our findings. We've got a focus on language, shift across research, adopting the researcher approach. These are our headings. You can see taking time, being flexible. These are the things from the participatory research. These are the ones about IQ intelligence, but we're able to say this is our big finding, that IQ-based intelligence has a critical impact upon education and employment aspirations, experience, and opportunities. And then we can break that down into subcategories that fall under that bigger category, and we can say which articles that came from. So again, we're able to demonstrate the theme. We've got there the quotes and the themes and how we've labeled it and where we've placed it. So again, you can demonstrate all of this to people. You can demonstrate that the continuum where we came up with this sheet here, we can say we've got this, but we can tell you that it came from 69 concepts with 44 sources. We can tell you the sources, we can tell you the concepts, and so forth. We can demonstrate what were the key themes that emerged across this 3-year review. We can be quite precise and people can track it back. We can demonstrate, we can be quite precise about findings again now. We can start to say that we've got these aiming, we can say that these are ideas for ways of generating ideas and conversation. These are ways of moving beyond everyday communication. These are the things that were in each of the studies, because these have been systematically extracted. We can make statements that are broad. We can be quite specific in our findings now. Each singular continuum spread encouraged a simplified view of issues. They created a separate spread of threat practice through which people could fall. And that is a synthesis. That's from looking across the 63 papers. You could see that there were examples of that in enough papers to be able to make those statements, and people can follow you back. You can make statements, and this one, it's about problems associated with the continuum. You can be quite precise, and this isn't the opinion of the author as such. You're able to say, this is what is evident from the research. This is where we got it from. Okay, so again, this is another example of that. I'll move on from that. But it allows you to represent. So this actually is relevant because this then we took this idea here and these ideas here, and we see that says continua strategies, continua space, and we reconceptualized it because that's what we've been asked to do by our funders, and we reconceptualized it under 6 broader categories. So we brought all the continua together. We could demonstrate why we did that and how we did that. And then we were able to produce a visual representation of the ways in which those strategies work together in the literature. Okay, so again, all of this stuff feeds in, but we wouldn't have been able to get to this particular representation and these particular ideas and back it up without having had the systematic review behind it. So I'm going to finish with two questions, the two slides. One is, what are the good things about systematic reviews? Well, what I've provided you is that they're about a clarity of approach. They give you the opportunity to have robust, to say, look, this is an overview of the field. Of this specific, really small question. This is how we've done it, and this is a way we can show you how we've synthesized our findings, and we can reveal deeper patterns across the literature. However, there are lots of different ways of doing it. Actually, you can overgeneralize things. There is often a systematic literature review doesn't necessarily suit particular types of social science and qualitative research. So a narrative storytelling is much harder to do a systematic review of. So it's harder in social sciences, whereas it's easier to do it, for instance, in biology and physics and so forth, where you've got specific data and you can compare hard data. And very often it's quite easy to miss the social context of the process, because you are focusing, you're extracting systematically, so you're not looking across things. So that's why you have to be reflective, and their subjectivity is important. And the last criticism of systematic reviews is that they can focus on such small questions that actually they're meaningless, that actually the real issues are very often big, and the systematic reviews too small, too focused. Do I agree with that? Yes, I think all the criticisms are true, but I do think the other slide is true as well. I think they're a very useful system. They're a way of working together easily, to collaborate well together easily, and to produce something in a way that is easy for other people to explore whether you've done it well. Thank you. I haven't given you a lot of time to talk. Sorry, I've gone about 5 minutes longer than I meant. So I'm looking at, Mustafa's got a question there, is how do you keep track of which ideas were brought up by which papers? I find it very time consuming to keep going back to papers and scrolling through them to find the certain idea to cite. So it's about extracting the data into I don't know, an Excel spreadsheet, for example, or a Word document or something like that, so that you have the title. There's the title of my paper, and you extract the data that you want. It's there, and the title and the data are always together. And that is, it's time consuming to do that, to extract and save. But if you do that, you will make sure it also helps you avoid plagiarizing. No, so the question there about, do you ever read the full papers? Yes, you read the full papers, but you only read the full papers once you've got, I'm sorry, I probably haven't said this. Once you've got the 63, say, for example, you've chosen 3,000 abstracts, you've gone through the 3,000 abstracts, you've put the inclusion exclusion criteria, you've decided there are 63 papers that are relevant. That's when you read the 63 papers, and you read them in detail. And as I said, it might be two of you read all the papers. It might be that you break the team up, and some read some and some read the other. Yes, you know, if you boil down to, you've got 63 papers and you have to read them, you have to read them. However, if you are interested in just, for example, the quantitative data, you just need to go to the tables. You don't need to spend that much time reading all the background literature review in the article, for example. So there are shortcuts that you learn to take. And when you're reading the abstracts, you go very fast, really fast. You can read, you know, you can get through 500 abstracts in a day, 400 maybe, if you really go for it. And you've got to stay focused and you've got to concentrate. And that's why moderation is so important. Is it, I'm not quite sure I get, Haftam, I'm not quite sure I get this one about, is it literature reviews, are they mandatory to incorporate in any research? Generally speaking, yes, okay. If you know a lot of the literature, you don't need to go away and do a literature review. So now when I'm often writing a paper, I know enough about a field not to need to do a literature review. If you're going into something new, or you're trying to go for a funding bid, doing a systematic literature review prior to that, very helpful, very helpful. And you get 2 papers, because you'll get a paper on the systematic literature review, and then you've got your the background for the paper you want to write. Minimum number of people doing a systematic review, I've done one with 2. It's pushing it. You're better to have 3 or 4, or 5 or 6, but you don't want to go into 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. So I would say somewhere between 2 and 6. But more people, if it's a really big thing. If you've only ended up with 800 papers, actually 2 of you can do it quite quickly, and that's fine, and it can be rigorous. What types of research techniques are most for social science? Well, my feeling is that generally speaking, qualitative is the thing that's going to get you about people's lived experiences. Quantitative is going to get you patterns across populations. So it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for patterns across populations, use quantitative. If you're looking for people's experiences, I would say that qualitative is a better approach. Yes, I do use software, and it's fine. Lots of people love it. Actually, now I can't be bothered. I'd rather just use I would rather just use Word documents and Excel spreadsheets, which I can control. And I'm doing exactly the same thing as a software, but I'm an elderly gent. I'm used to doing it that way. I know some people who do their thematic analysis with these sort of little notes, and they have like sheets of paper, string, and they hang everything up off bits of string. That's a very old-fashioned. Personally, I'm happy because that's what I grew up doing. Prisma's fine. I mean, in some ways, you've just got to understand your systematic process and be explicit about your systematic process. And you need to have those images, the inclusion-exclusion criteria, your search terms, your inclusion-exclusion criteria. Let's start. Your data, but your question, your database, your inclusion-exclusion criteria, and then you need to be able to produce those tables. After that, how detailed you get in the data extraction, that I think is the stuff that's up to you. And you can just move almost entirely to a thematic bit of analysis there, or you can still be systematic in the way that you represent it. We're at 9:30 in my time. Thank you all very much for staying with us. I've come to an end. If anybody wants to send me an email, I think there's something at the beginning. I hope that's been of use to you. And I've also given you a PDF version of this. And at the end of that PDF, you will see that there is all the papers that there you go. There are the systematic reviews that I used and I've talked about in the paper, in the talk.
Yes, Professor Jonathan, thank you very much for sharing this very important aspect on research and literature reviewing aspect regarding to the publication. So if the time allows for you, I would like to have few more chances to our audience to have raise their questions and clarify them from your end. So how about that, Professor?
That's fine by me.
Okay. So the audience, I would once again like to invite you to share your questions or your comments and clarify them with the support and the guidance of Professor Jonathan Rees. So you can use 2 ways to direct questions to Professor Jonathan. You can use the Q&A section in the Zoom platform, or you can either use the raise hand option, so we can direct your questions to Professor Jonathan.
Hamsu's got his hand up.
Yes, Haftom, you can go ahead and ask your question.
You're still muted, Hamasu.
Hamisu, you also can raise your question. Go ahead.
Just I'm coming.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm getting more times. Thank you for nice presentation, Mr. Professor. Just it's very interesting and very attractive section. Just I have a lot of objectives, a lot of goals have accepted for your presentations. Just my question is, which types of analytical softwares are used for social science, especially for qualitative data? Which one is most acceptable? Which one is easy to for reviewing as a literature? Which one is very important? Applications are used for social science.
Okay.
This is my question. Thank you.
So for systematic reviews, as I said, the thing that I'm aware of is EPI. And EPI you have but these things you have to pay for. In terms of software, I've been trained on a couple, and I have to say I can't remember their names because I just don't use them. So I can't answer your question. I'm not the guy to answer those questions, apart from to say I've shown you the processes. What I do is I invent them. I find it much easier to invent the system I need with the team I'm working with. Actually, to have a bit of software that a member of the team brings in and everybody wants to work with, great, let's do that. It's actually about agreeing the system and the process, and it being relevant to the question. Very often the software, and so for example, the EPI software, it has all these fixed questions that just are not relevant to a great many systematic literature reviews. It's too much detail. It's detail that's irrelevant. So it's about identifying the right thing for your particular project and your question and your team.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarifications. Thank you, Mr. Professor.
Pleasure. We got
Yes,
Rami Androsa, Risoa. Hamisu.
Good morning, sir.
Hello.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Hamisu.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Hear me? Yeah, you hear me or not? I have one question. Yes, you hear me?
Is it Rami Androsa? We can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one question. For me, could you give me the one example for review this literature for storytelling, narrative, and the current learning?
Could I give you an example of one? Send you a link to one. Yes, I can. I tell you where you could go. If you were to go into, I'm going to put into the chat. If you go into Oro, which is at the Open University, I'm just putting it into the chat here. And why is it? Oh, it's not meant to be a direct message. This is to everybody. I can't. Hang on, I've got to go to the chat. Where's the chat? The chat's gone.
Yes,
Chat.
Professor, you can use the option to everyone in the chat.
No, it's
So-
just not giving me that. It's just giving me direct messages.
So you can share that message with me. I will put directly into the chat box
Okay.
again
So
for everyone.
if it goes to Oro, the Open University, and you put my name in, and you search for either continuum or while of participation, and you search for those, there are free papers there. If you put in, the other one would be the special education one. The intelligence one is available for free on. Let me find this paper. This one here is available. This one coming up. This one I know is available as a free online article. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning,
And in
Prof.
there and in those, you should see the pictures and the diagrams of the sort that I'm talking about, because generally journals want those things if you're going to get them published.
Good morning, sir.
Hamasu, yes.
Yes, good morning, Prof.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm very sorry. I have a network problem. So, Prof, I'm a student from for master's student at Shara University in India. So I have a request. I don't know whether you can assist me by sending me the slide for this workshop, because I know
It's
it's going to help me for writing my thesis, for master's thesis, sir. And then secondly,
ask the organizers. They've already got a PDF of all the of this, and it's available for you. And all
Okay,
the
sir.
references are in that PDF as well. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, okay. Thank you, sir.
Good
Thank
luck
you,
with
sir.
the
Have a nice-
masters. Good luck with it.
Pardon?
I said good luck. Good luck with your masters.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Professor. It seems like we have running out of time, so would like to move forward in our agenda. So before we move forward, once again,
Can I
would
just
like.
ask? Can I just say there's one other question has come in, which
Okay,
is,
okay.
as you know, we don't have enough access to published articles if they're paid for. What can be the criteria to review? There's an awful lot of good papers in open access now, and actually it's about looking at the papers and making sure that if they are clear about what they've done and how they've done it, it doesn't matter whether it's free, open access, then it'll work. One of the things to bear in mind is to use research. What's it called? Most universities have open access places. So like at the Open University, we have Oro, so you can get the papers for free. Searching on ResearchGate is another very good way of getting papers for free. And if you go through Google Scholar, very often that will link you out to ResearchGate and will link you out to the university's free repositories, so you can get the papers. Most papers, you can find them for free nowadays. Thank you. I answered that.
Okay, Professor. Thank you very much for sharing this wonderful insight about the publication, and I hope the content that you have shared with the workshop participants are really helpful for them as researchers. So I would like to convey my sincere gratitude for your immense contribution for this workshop, as well as for the ICADU 2024 conference. So thank you very much once again, and let's keep in touch. So now I would like to invite Ms. Dilki to share a brief overview about the 10th International Conference on Education 2024 and the Future of Education 2024 conference, and aware what is there in for you.
Ajara. 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 Ajara.
Thank you so much, Dinusha, for your for this opportunity, and I hope you can hear me, and I hope you can see my presentation slides. So, as you know, these are the two conferences that we are going to conduct on this year by TIIKM conferences. So, first one would be the 10th International Conference on Education 2024. And the second conference would be the 7th International Conference on Future Education 2024. And I would like to go through the overview of the ICDU conference. So I think you can see my screen, right? Okay. So ICDU 2024 will bring together a wide range of research and case studies from around the world, presented in parallel sessions with ample networking and publishing prospects. And also on that conference, we do have 4 workshops, and we do have a networking dinner and panel discussion. So this ICDU conference also we are going to conduct in Colombo, Sri Lanka, and the date would be this from 2nd to 4th of May. So you can see the success of ICDU conference. So you can see ICDU conference have 9 years success, and you can see 60 plus countries, and also you can see the 160 plus universities and also 5,000 network. And you can see the this ICDU conference location. So this time we are going to conduct in Sri Lanka. So if you are willing to travel to Sri Lanka, so this is very good opportunity to come to our ICDU conference as well. So it's not only traveling, so you can grab more knowledge and you can expand your network from our ICDU conference. And also the next conference, it is the Future Education Conference. So for the Future Education Conference, we are only talking about the future of education. And also we are talking about the latest trends in education, latest innovations in education. And also we are talking about the AI. And this conference also, we do have 3 workshops: AI discussion, panel discussion, and also the networking dinner. And this conference also we are going to conduct in Bangkok, Thailand. And the date would be the 11th and 12th July 2024. And also you can see our conference venue. So this this year also we are going to conduct this conference in Bangkok, Thailand. Actually you are willing to travel or shopping, so this time you can come for our Thailand, which means for our Future Education Conference. And also you can grab your knowledge and you can expand your network at our Future Education Conference. And you can also see the Future Education Conference success. So this conference, we do have 6 years of success and 55 plus countries and 160 plus universities, and you can see 3,000 plus network. And actually, why you should come to our educational conference? So you can see these are the reasons that you need to come for our conferences. So you can see global research presentation platform. So those who are doing research, it means like students, delegates. So these are the platform you can share your research within two global network. And also we do have international networking. So you can expand your global network on that conference. And we do have inspirational speakers from around the world. And we do have publication opportunities. So for publication opportunities, our Mr. Dinusha will give a brief introduction about the publication opportunity. And we do have endorsed certifications and awards for excellence. So it means we are giving best presenter awards, and we are handovering certificates as well. And I would like to invite Ms. Deshani to give a promotional content and also the what are the opportunities for these conferences. So I would like to invite Ms. Deshani. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dilki. Thank you very much for sharing those insights about the ICTU and the future education conferences. So let me go through with the overall overview of those education conferences, because these conferences not only for the can you share the slide? The last slide. Right. Okay. So these two conferences actually we are mainly developed for the global presentation network. So actually for those two conferences, we will be having so much opportunity. It's not only for the presentations. Actually, we will be having so much of scholarship program we will be conducting in the particular websites. For both websites, we will be having so much of opportunities. As if you would like to be a volunteer with those conferences, those two education conferences, as a virtual volunteer, as a physical volunteer, you have that opportunity with us. So please go to our websites. We have already shared our website links today with you all. So you can go to our websites and check if you would like to be a volunteer with us and work with this organizing committee, and also be a country coordinator. If you are eligible for a country coordinator, of course, we will be sharing you the meeting. We will be having the meeting with you, and we will be getting on board on you. So, and this is a platform to our all researchers to share their knowledge and their research and their presentation in the international academic network. So we will be expecting more than 250 participants internationally for these two conferences, which one is in Colombo, Sri Lanka, and another one is Bangkok, Thailand. So this is the two different venues. So you can always have different two cultures and diversity into these two kind of venues as well. And this is the, this is not the it's not about the physical conference experience. This is all about the both virtual and physical experience that you can grab. So if you would not be able to participate the conference physically, so you can join the conference virtually as well. And also, as we said, we will be having two networking sessions for the virtual participation, also the physical participation as well. So grab these opportunities. Actually, this is a wonderful opportunity for all of you to get the knowledge and get all of your colleagues, your networks on board, and get group discounts as well. So Dilki, next slide, please. So we have arranged a few scholarships and also promo codes for both conferences. Can you please share the next slide? Right. So these are the registration for our workshop participants for ICDU conference. Actually, our final deadline for the submission will be on 20th of February. So please, if you have not submitted your abstract, please submit your abstract before 20th of February. If you need any extension, please let us know. So me and Dilki will be the conference coordinators for these two conferences. So you can always talk to us. We will be in the WhatsApp group, and you have our direct number of WhatsApp, so you can always talk to us. And we will be giving that exclusive 10% discount for the our workshop participants as well. And for the future education, the deadline will be on 27th of February 2024. So don't forget to submit your abstract along with the promo code of ICDU #10 and also the promo code of FOE #10. So you will be getting that 10% discount. So if you have a network like the group of participants for these particular conferences, please let us know. Then we can give more discounts for the group participation as well. So we welcome you all to both conferences. And yes, next slide, please. Right. As I said, these are the important dates for the upcoming conference, and we will be giving you the contact details. The next slide. Right. So this is my WhatsApp number, the direct number, and also this is my email ID. So if you have any questions regarding to the education conferences, you can always talk to me. And we have Dilki's contact number. It's dilki.s@TIIKM.com. So she will be mainly handling the future education conference. So if you have any kind of clarification regarding to future education, you can directly contact us. So we think that actually we will be having most of communications, inquiries after this particular workshops as well. So we will be having our third workshop in 8th of March. So join for that workshop as well. So we will be sharing all the guidelines for certification that we will be issuing. So please stay tuned with us for all the workshop guidelines. If you have not joined the WhatsApp group, please let us know. We will be adding you to all the WhatsApp groups because we will be sharing all the pre-conference workshop updates for you in this particular WhatsApp group. So I wish you all a very good day, and I hope to meet you all in Sri Lanka and also Bangkok, Thailand. So thank you very much, all of you, for participating in the workshop. So I would like to welcome Dinusha Randimal to explain about and enhance about the publication opportunities at ICTU and future education. Dinusha, it's over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Deshani. Please let me share my screen first. Okay, hope you can see the screen. So let's discuss what are the publication options, in what way as a conference participant, what kind of a publication support that you can gain from the 10th International Conference on Education as well as the Future of Education Conference. So in simply, as you all know, by participating to a conference, you can expand your publication opportunity. But when it comes to TIIKM, the conferences organized by TIIKM, definitely you can expand your publication opportunities with high-ranked supporting journals, as well as you can publish your work in our conference proceedings. Not only that, we are going to support you to enhance your publication skills by providing these kinds of pre-conference publication workshops, also, as well as we are going to provide you the post-conference publication support. There's also another dedicated service called Publish Help Service, which is for you to develop your full paper to be published in a high-indexed international journal. Later on, I will explain those in detail, and other than that, you can get the expert guidance with publication workshops, and we also there to have one-to-one meetings and provide you the personalized guidance. So here is a brief chart about what kind of publication opportunities that you can have if you get selected to the conference to be a participant after the peer reviewing process of your abstract. Then you have to register with us, and after that, definitely your abstract will get published in our abstract book. And later, if you are going to have the support to publish your work through TIIKM, we are there for you to provide support through affiliated journals as well as conference proceedings. When it comes to the book of abstract, all the abstracts that you submitted for us will subject it to double-blind peer reviewing process through a well-standard scientific committee, and it's accordance with the CORP guidance. All the things we do relate to the book of abstract and the other publication aspects. And finally, when it comes to the abstract book, it's available online. When it comes to the full paper publication opportunities, we are having these as supporting journals: the Action Learning, Research and Practice Journal, Journal of Environmental Education, Educational Forum, Transformation in Higher Education, Journal of Technical Education and Learning, Journal of Educators Online. So, if you are going to get the support for your full paper development, what you have to do is you have to fill the AIS, which we are going to share with you after you are getting registered with us. AIS means the author information sheet. It's a kind of a Google form in where we are going to get your publication preferences, your publication requirements, and those informations. After that, once we received your feedback, or we can identify your publication preference, and according to that, we can share you the guidelines and we can support you to develop your manuscript. Please make sure once we have shared the guidelines and the things, it's really essential, really important to follow those guidelines and make the submission precisely. Otherwise, you have to face certain difficulties when accepting your papers to the journals. Once you submit your full paper to the journal, definitely you can share your submission ID with us, so we can just follow up with the journal editors about the status of your paper and communicate back with you. When it comes to the conference proceedings, the conference proceeding is having a unique ISSN number, and we provide unique DOI link for each and every article that get published in our conference proceedings, and it's also indexed in Google Scholar, Climax Matrix, and also have the cross-ref coverage. So when it comes to the proceedings, it's not associated with any kind of publication charges, but if you are interested in submitting your full paper to the conference proceeding, the deadline for that is 20th of May, and it should be 2024. So areas that you need to keen on when doing the publication is simply like this. I hope during the workshop also you get a rough idea about the way that you have to deal with the journals and how to do the literature review. So here is only just a few points that you need to remember when you are doing a submission to the journal. So it's simple like this. First, you have to check what aim or what is the aim, what is the scope of your full paper that you are going to submit to a journal. You have to have a rough idea about that. And then you have to select a journal that is going to match for the aim and scope your full paper. Then what you have to do is you have to prepare your manuscript according to the journal requirements. And then you need to keen on the language and the grammar that you are using. Most of the international journals, they are using the English language. So it's better to get a support from some expert if you are not good at in English. And then the plagiarism. Normally, when we are referring, taking information from previous papers, previous literature, the plagiarism amount you have to definitely consider. Normally, it's up to 20%. You can take the things from the others, but if it is more than that, then definitely you are in trouble when you're submitting your work to the journal. So So definitely you need to have idea about the similarity index that you are having with your full paper. Then if you are having if you have included graphic materials for your full paper, please be careful about their quality, as it's going to be also important. Finally, the way you do the referencing, it can be in text or it can be bibliography, but whatever the way you are going to use using the reference, please make sure what is the references style the particular journal is interested or mentioned in their guideline, and according to that you have to make your reference style. And these are also some very important areas that you need to know when it comes to journal publication. The journals, they are having a process called peer reviewing process. This peer reviewing process can be single binded or double binded, but whatever it is, almost all the papers, they are subject, almost all the quality international papers, they use this peer reviewing process. Most of the time, it's according to the COP standards. So the decision regarding your publication will take after this peer review process. So this is a universally accepted process, and we are also going to adhere to that. Therefore, when it comes to guaranteeing the publication, it is really, really difficult. That's what you also need to remember. And now I would like to describe the published help service that we are going to give you to enhance or increase the opportunity that you can get your work published in a good journal. So through the published help service, we are going to direct your paper to one of expert in the field, and they are going to have a look on your paper. They are going to provide comments on what areas that the paper need to be developed, and based on that you can develop your paper. Other than that, we are going to provide you a plagiarism report as well, so you have a kind of idea about the level of similarity index in your full paper, and you can consider when developing the paper as well. So all the registered participants for the conference, all the paid registered participants for the conference are eligible for these published help service. If you are interested in applying for this service, simply what you have to do is share your full paper with us by sending an email with the subject application for published help service with the conference name. For example, if you are interested in the 10th International Conference on Education, use the acronym ICEDU and send that email along with your full paper to the publication at TIIKM.edu.com email address. So this is a free service that we are going to provide all the conference participants to enhance the publication aspects. These are some free resources that you can use to enhance your knowledge and get updated about the publication and other research aspects, as well as other conferences. So we invite all of you to have a visit and have an idea about and enhance your knowledge about the publication and the conferences that we are going to organize. So now we have come to the end. At the end, I would like to share that we are going to provide continuous guidance assistance for you to make your publication dream a kind of a reality. So if you need any kind of a clarification, or if you need to have more information, please reach out to us at publication@TIIKM.edu.com email address. So thank you very much. And so with that, we are going to wind up the workshop, the second workshop under the workshop series we are organizing to enhance the publication knowledge and other knowledges related to the education of the research scholars in the global education system. So thank you very much once again for attending this workshop. Hope you have gained something, and we'll invite you to use the things that you have gained here in your future, for your future advancement. And finally, I would like to invite all of you for our third workshop, and Hope to see you there, and thank you very much.